So you pass the stress test. Your resume looks great. Your cover letter looks great. They like you. They've called you in for an interview. What happens next? This part is challenging because you've made it this far. It means they really like you. They just now want to see you're a fit. They just now want to check that you're the person that will be the best fit amongst these few candidates left. This is requires a lot of preparation. Not preparing for it will be your biggest blunder. And what's going to happen, for example, is depending on your level of experience, there's going to be different types of interviews. You'll have usually your initial interview with the HR manager or somebody from HR to dwindle whether you kind of like fit and, the basics, they get a profile they're looking for and they'll try to lead you on to the hiring manager for a second interview where you can ask a lot of those technical questions on the job, those very detailed things. This is about, do you fit the role in the first interview? What things are about the work like here? Those things like what's it like working on what team? That's for the second interview. In some cases, you go straight to this hiring manager. Those particularly with experience, that will happen sometimes. Or it's a smaller company. In other cases too, there is testing, and I want to let you know testing will continue after college. So take your time to know what's required. If you need a certificate, go do your certificate testing, CPAs for example. Or if you want to go into logistics and supply chain, the Six Sigma testing. All that's going to be necessary to get a job. For others too, like in marketing or sales and things like that, they may just do a testing center. And that's important. Or if you want to do expatriates, good companies will test their employees if they're prepared or mentally aware of what it's like to be an expatriate. So there's a whole level of testing required. And so if you learn how to test, you'll do well in the center. In my case, for example, the big, awesome, outside the college jobs you want, those management trainees or those advanced trainee positions only for students that are doing well, 3.0 or higher, and those jobs will require testing on site as well. In my case, I had an 8-hour one. Got there in the morning and had 3 to 4 hours of prepping various different things that will later be tested in front of the board of directors of the company. It was super stressful. So I cannot stress enough, get aptitude testing books. Type it into Amazon, aptitude testing books. They will pop out. They can be variations of like knowledge testing, whether you can calculate Fahrenheit to Celsius, to language testing, to if you're doing software testing. Also, it could be decision making. How would you do this if you saw that? It could even be scenario testing. It can also be, what's the other one? Behavioral, personality testing, wondering what's your personality like. So all that is to help the decision makers understand if you're a good fit. Much of this becomes less important later on in your career when you have 5-10 years experience, where background checking and reference checking becomes essential. So that's why I also say don't lie in your resume. It's not necessary. Get those times right so they can find that you work there. So that's what we're talking about. You got to prepare. So start getting those aptitude test books, considering the types of things that might be coming up. And we're going to go over a couple more with interviews and what you need to consider. Interviews can be daunting at first, like public speaking. One-on-one interviews with the HR manager is quick. They're looking for somebody that's personable. So be ready to be smiling on the phone. I swear, if you're on the phone, smile and they will feel it. The energy, the nice little giggle, the things that make you feel like it's calming. I'm in my zone. I'm in control. That's great. Sometimes it can be a panel interview. Boy, that was fun. I did one. My first one was for a tourism guide for Islamic art. So I was excited, and I had a panel of 5 representatives from the museum, and it was fun. What happened was, I controlled the room so well by engaging each one and respecting each one. I was in one panel interview where the one person drowned out and was not representative. So, be careful with panel interviews. respect the space for everybody so they can all speak, even if that's happening on the other side where somebody's dominating someone else. So be ready to ask questions. So this is structured for if I was an interviewer. I'm also giving this to you as an interviewee. So be prepared to ask questions as well in your interviews, because they want to know that you're engaged and you've been thinking about it. Questions that can be asked when going through an interview process. They can ask you about your knowledge, your skills. Do you have grit? Do you rigor? Do you really want to be here? Are you curious and learning? Are you team-oriented? Do you take ownership of your work, independent and team-working abilities? But they shouldn't be asking about your age, your race, your gender, your religion, your sexual orientations, or your politics. None of that should be asked. It's inappropriate and against the federal government in many cases, most cases, all cases. Don't ask those questions, please. It's not okay. In face-to-face interviewing, seems so silly, all the same. Assessments and testing centers, I mentioned that before. These tests are important to prepare for, well beyond your college. In face-to-face interviews, what you're going to want to do is prepare. And how do you do that? Let me pull up an example. So I have provided this interview questions XLX. It's an Excel sheet. Please take a look at this. I cannot remember where it's at in the files, but it's in this unit or the last unit for sure, unit 4. But this interview questions is going to help you the most. These things you can start doing on your own now. You need to have a list of your skills, quantitative and qualitative and direct skills, but also the questions that we'll be giving. Here in this, it gives you the question that's going to be asked and what it's actually asking for. This is once again provided by Brian Harmon. This is a wonderful exercise. Here you could put your answers and answer all these things. The adaptability questions, your cultural addition questions. Can you be collaborative? Leadership, growth, and prioritization. He gives you each one the question and what they're really asking for so you can prepare your better answer. The final thing you need to be doing is taking the job description by its bullet points and think of the questions that could be asked about those and what you would answer. That's that utility belt that I talked about in my presentations video. You go into that, you have utility belts of different questions, so you don't sit there like, oh, that's a good question. Let me think. Some questions you need to know on the spot. Your elevator pitch. When they ask you, tell me about yourself, don't list off your resume. They already have it. Don't waste their time. Tell me about yourself as your personal story. Share and elaborate that. What matters there and why being here will be the big deal for you and how you can help them solve their problems. Because once again, it's about them, not you. You'll either save them time, save them money, make their lives easier, or make the money. There's only a few things you'll be doing for the company. Know what that is. And that's why you do this section here by creating the questions you think they'll ask. Learning about the company, learning about the job, learning about those around there, doing your search. Be detailed. This needs to be done already. This is what you do when you get asked for the interview. Easy peasy. Finally, you've done well. You've gotten through the interviews, the testing center. You're amazing. They want to give you an offer, and it's so cool. So what happens? Always be careful about the real offer and what's being offered. Don't mistake what is not an offer by them actually just prolonging things. So be hopefully that they're transparent. They're not. You're asking the right questions early on. When they're deciding you. They've evaluated you against hundreds of candidates in the initial process to an interview of maybe 5 candidates, and they really think you could do the job. So you're down to this final selection. This is what they're looking at. You met the criteria? They got input from the others on the team. They're already shared your resume and your cover letter with teammates. They think you got it. They've also shared it with other staff. Sometimes, you might meet the vice president of the team that's overseeing the manager. They want to give you that extra element too. So that's what's happening. So then comes this job offer. They're going to make you an offer. The big question about negotiating is, do I make an offer first? When I do negotiations section, or teach negotiations, we teach that you want to give the first offer because you're setting an anchor effect. The opposite happens here. If you're making an initial offer or saying what your salary is, you've already limited an anchor that you don't know about yet. Give you a good example. A professor of mine during the dot-com bubble was a physics person and was doing physics stuff. I cannot remember where. And he was making $25,000 a year. Some dot-com bubble company guy came up to him and said, hey, on the phone, we would like to offer you. How much would you like? He didn't know what to say. 25,000 was not much, but he also didn't want to scare them away. Looked to his wife and said, what do you think? And she was nervous too. And she said, double. And so he's like, how about 50,000? And the guy's on the phone, says, okay, and hangs up. Later, years later, the guy tells him he could have made $150,000 a year. He would have offered that. Do not put yourself in a position that would have a negative impact, economic impact on you, and you lose tens of thousands of dollars. The less they know, the more they will want to know that they got to catch you. Because if they want you, that's why you're here. You got to convince them that you're worth it. So do not disclose the expectations of the salary. It is not the norm compared to other negotiation strategies. It is here. Unless you're absolutely certain of your ZOPA or what you think is the possible offer, don't. I still recommend not. So wait until the offer comes. So what happens? I'm in this interview and the person's like, hey, well, what are your salary expectations? You kindly deflect. And you say, I don't know. I would like to wait until I see the job offer. And then they might persist. Well, we need to put some number in. We need to know what your what your expectations are. And so we know this is worth going forward, for example. I've heard that one. Just say, it's okay. I understand you really like me and you're really considering an offer or considering to hire me, but I would like to wait until we see the actual job offer. You know what I'm worth and what the value is. So can we wait till then? Or let's please wait until then. Don't leave them a question. And if they're going to still be uncomfortable, just go through the uncomfort for like 90 seconds to 2 minutes. You can survive, and they will eventually let it go, and they'll know you mean business. Trust me, it works. And so what to do when they do offer? For those, experience matters. Those with more experience has a lot more wiggle room. You can ask for increased salaries. You could say, I was looking at this, or I want benefits in this way. Or you could cash benefits, like I want a bigger contribution this way, or I want stock benefits or something, right? The higher you are, the more you can negotiate. Just do so politely. That won't negatively affect the offer. The less experience you have, the less you can really negotiate at all. And I was in that situation. Couldn't say anything. I was like, well, what about this or that? No, this is what it's going to be. So I would rather you focus on the work things, like can I work remotely still? Or how would that hybrid working model work? What about the holistic health things? Like what if you need to go to the gym or something? Making sure that's a part of that if that's something you want. Depends on you. Some companies are very liberal about that now. Some are not. Juggling family needs. What if I got to go pick up my kids at school? Making sure that those needs are met too. So that's what most employers are recognizing. They have to be flexible and to these various needs of you being able to work at home, manage your family, and manage your health and things like that. So they're getting more and more flexible. And they know this. And for me, it's a big deal because it's a worker rights issue, and also it's a gender rights issue. So and a minority rights issue. So there's a lot of reasons why I appreciate companies are opening up more, but they need to way more. They're going slow. So if there's something you got to do for your family, do it and make sure they know that's something a part of the offer. So, I think you'll be surprised what happens in the future. Once again, prepare. I got you the Excel sheets from Brian, not me. Sorry, Brian got you the Excel sheets. You got the idea of what you got to do, what you got to test for, all those things. Please do so. Don't waste this chance. You're in the door. Now it's time to win.